All right, mic check, I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron and we are doing crazy things here in Fabtech. As you can tell, the setup is different than normal. Usually there's stands, there's lights, there's all the pomp and fare, but WestJet, and I'm not going to be shy about throwing their name out there, they lost my luggage. So our 90% of our podcast gear is gone. Thank you to Becker and the Arc Junkies for stepping up and helping fill in some of the stuff. We're still running on. We're holding our own mics. And I got earbuds instead of my normal fancy headphones. We got all stuff. But it's working. We figured it out, and we got it going. So Chuck Faught here. Chuck Faught. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for stepping in and being the guinea pig on today's podcast. It's a little bit of madness, but hey, what's Fabtech without madness?
Exactly, and thanks for having me, but you've seen some of the stuff I do, so madness is kind of goes along with it. So
yeah, so when did you get in here into Atlanta, Georgia?
Well, I actually did a 2-day trip, even though I'm only 5 hours from here. We had to stop off in Chattanooga and do some fab work for some booth displays, and continued on and got here Monday morning.
So, let everybody know what you do, what's your position, and the company you work for.
So what I do is, to sum it up, is Oxy-Fuel in all aspects. Work for Flame Technologies. My title is Steel Industry Products Manager. And it's kind of a all-encompassing title because we didn't want to focus or focus my communication down too low. As far as you specifically do Oxy-Fuel cutting, or you specifically do Oxy-Fuel heating or safety, so on and so forth. So it's a wide variety of applications that we do.
Now, when you talk about Oxy-Fuel, I love the term Oxy-Fuel as opposed to oxyacetylene or oxypropane.
It just rolls off the tongue.
And I think it's more encompassing to what most of this equipment can actually do. You're not limited into the types of fuels.
Exactly.
So, how did you, let's back to the beginning, like how did you even get into doing what you do now? Were you, 20 years old and thinking, man, I really dig Oxy-Fuel cutting. Like someday I hope this is all I do.
You said you're going to dig deep on me. So here we go. Actually, how I got started was 20 years old was a good good guess for you there. I was not in industry, had a couple jobs, had a Z28 Camaro that had to pay the insurance and gas on. No, I didn't have the T-tops, but I did have a 350. But
nice. 5-speed?
No, automatic.
Oh,
you're killing me, Max.
Sorry.
So what happened, I was just working a couple jobs here and there just to pay those bills and live the life, so to speak. I had a few friends that worked for a local distributor, a welding distributor.
Okay.
And we were out one weekend. They're like, hey, Chuck, we're hiring. You want to come work with us? And what was interesting about it is each one of my friends worked in a different department within that company. So one guy was in the store in one location. One guy was in the plant filling cylinders. One guy was working in the repair shop. And it was like, we were going to take this company over. The friends are all going to just work together, and eventually we're going to run it, right? So I went to work, worked in a store for the distributor, and started learning about the gases. Went to the different manufactured schools to teach me how to sell their products, so on and so forth. It's a pretty standard direction to go. And in about a year and a half, promoted into inside sales. You're doing a great job. We want to invest in you. Did that for about another year, and then they put their arm around me and said, "You see that steel mill over there? We want you to go sell them our stuff."
Yeah.
And that was back in 1995. By the time I got outside in the steel mills, and continued on with that company for a total of 10 years. Spent some time with Thermodyne, where I handled all aspects of welding as a generalist there, from Victor, Tweco, Studi, Thermodynamics, Arc Air. Stayed with them for a little bit, but take a step back. When I was with a distributor, I sold a lot of Flametech product. So very familiar with it, very focused on the heavy industry, steel mills, scrap processing. So when I left Thermodyne, got an interview with Flametech, met with Sean Toops, our owner, CEO, and he's like, welcome home. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, we've been waiting for you to come back and sell our product.
So this steel mill, where is this steel mill?
This steel mill is in Gary, Indiana.
Gary, Indiana. So I have a soft spot for steel mills. I worked as a maintenance welder for a steel mill for almost 10 years.
Mhm.
And I love that. A lot of people get scared of steel mills. They're dirty, dark dungeons, and they're hot, and they're wet, and they're scary, and they're greasy, and I love it.
The first time you go to a steel mill, you are scared. There's things here that can kill me.
Very quickly.
But you know, safety practices and you know, keeping alert and whatnot, you're fine. You just have to know where to go, where not to go, and how to protect yourself.
Yeah, well, and the scale of steel mills. Like, I mean, I had worked as a welder, and I knew oxy-acetylene cutting more than anything, right? So, you know, you're working with steel. Sometimes you get into something thicker. Sometimes you get into something cool, like oxygen lance or something. But then when I went to go work at the steel mill, it's the first time I saw like a 200 psi natural gas torch, like on a 10-foot handle,
Yes.
and you're ripping 10-inch plate from 30 feet away, and you're wearing like an asbestos suit because it's like 1,000,000
Oh,
degrees,
absolutely.
right? And I was like, yes, this is power.
Yes.
You know, and is that the kind of stuff that you were trying to sell to the steel mill? Were you working on that type of stuff, or more on the like maintenance crew user stuff?
Well, when I first went to the steel mills, I was doing everything. So U.S. Steel was my only customer. Really, what it came out to be, there was probably 100 delivery points. So within that mill, so I had typically 100 customers. But they were mainly my own customers. So every day in the mill, and not only did I do Oxy-Fuel, we did welding, we did safety, gases, anything that was encompassed under the welding supply umbrella is basically what we were selling them.
Now, before this, though, like I want to take it even further back. Like, I mean, why even look at this field at all? You know, like you could have gone and done some type of other sales job. Like, you know, I mean, I feel like sales is your gift.
Okay, I'm going to back it up now.
All right.
I was with my friends.
Yeah, and that's it.
And,
Like,
and that's how it started.
that's really it. So it was one of them in the steel industry that pulled people in, or
No, it was just hey, come work with us. We're gonna take this. We're all in all these departments. We're gonna take the company over. The funny thing about it is, I think there may be one of those guys that are left in the industry.
yeah, everyone kind of ran away.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's an interesting industry because of the ebb and flow, right? As things move up and down. Now, you said Flametech, you were already around. So 95, like I'm old. When you say 95, I'm like, oh, that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
But that's a long time ago now. You know, Flametech, how long has it been around as a company? What's the history of the company before you?
Yeah. So Flametech was founded in 1980.
Okay.
Our founder, his name was Chuck Toops. So I've got the right name to come into the
Wow,
company.
okay. So there's an in there.
Yes, and originally the reason why he got into the business or industry on that side, he was always in the industry, so to speak, but on the Oxy-Fuel side was there was a need for a alternative fuel gas or Oxy-Fuel product, which is like a two-piece tip that's splined rather than a solid copper tip for oxyacetylene. And he basically took existing products and improved upon them. So he would take it and he'd take it apart and look at it and, oh, I can improve this or I can do that, or maybe I can improve the manufacturing process of these where I can make more profitable or better performance. So that's how Flametech got started. And over the years, he would step up to the next product, the torch. So it was just tips to start with.
Yeah.
You know, well, let's
Tips that would fit the Lincolns or the Victors or the whatever.
any of them.
Yeah.
Any of them.
Smiths.
So then he looked into the torches. I'm going to do torches. And then he set his sights a little bit high and seen those steel mills and said, I want to do the big torches. What can I do? So he took, again, some existing product and said, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and I'm gonna tweak it, change it, re-engineer it, and now we've got a product that is unique to Flametech in the industry. And that is what launched Flametech in the steel industry, was that product.
And what's the footprint for Flametech? Like, I have to admit, I've been in the steel industry a long time, and it wasn't until maybe about 8 or 10 years ago that I started seeing Flame. Now, I'm in Canada, right? So, you know, and I think we've had this conversation, is like, I don't see the footprint of Flametech in Canada perhaps as much as I definitely see here in the U.S.
Right.
And, you know, you got your colleague here from Germany, and, you know, he obviously there's some footprint in Europe. So did I miss it in Canada, or is it maybe not as strong as a footprint up where I am?
So it's a great question. So what happened 8 to 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
is we started focusing on marketing our brand. We have always done manufacturing for others as well as ourselves. So we weren't real good about stamping our name, and saying this is our product, because we can put it in 2 different boxes and send it 2 different directions. So there's a little, history about that. So there wasn't a lot of recognition. Also, what happened in recent years is we don't have a strong marketing department. We're a small family-owned company, second generation owner, right? And we just didn't have the resources. So we pick up the pieces where we can. So when I say Steel Industry Products Manager, I manage the products, I manage the R&D, the applications, the marketing, and so on and so forth.
It's a big hat.
Exactly. So what we did is we started getting into social media, and we started reaching out to our end users and our potential end users, and we started marketing the brand along with the product. And we sell through welding distribution. Are they going to market my stuff for me?
Yeah.
No, they're not. Unless someone comes in there and says, "Hey, I want a FlameTech torch," and there's some distributors we have more
Clout with
whatever, they will. But we weren't growing that recognition until we started getting involved with social media and directly with our end users. We don't sell to that end user directly, but we got involved with them. Contact them, message them. How's it going? What products are you using? Is there anything that we can do? Maybe improve those products or new products. So that happened with a gentleman that came work for us for about a year or so, and helped us get our marketing program in line. And then he moved on, like he does.
And is that on your plate now?
He's good at what he does, and he handed it off to me, and he said, "Okay, I've got you some logos, I've got you some direction, run with it." And the funny thing is, he came to work for us. He's like, "I don't understand why you're not doing this already." He said, "Chuck, you're out there cutting steel.
Yeah, like it sells itself if people see it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, up to my record. I'm not as impressive as some of my messer people, but I'm at 65 inches that I cut. And
What gas? What type of gas?
It was natural gas.
Yeah, because usually you need that high pressure.
It's so much flow. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was like you're doing cool stuff. It's like people need to see this. So as I'm doing my applications, I start taking more video and pictures and stuff, and I would hand them off to him, and then he would, put them out there. And pretty soon it just started gelling and moving on from there.
So, when this social media engine starts to run, right? It's a double-edged sword,
Yes.
right? Because right off the top, you're like, why have I not been doing this the whole time? It just seems so easy and free to just get the stuff out there. But then immediately you realize, like, there's a recurrency issue that you got to deal with. If you catch a wave, staying on that wave is very difficult.
It is.
Right? So there's like now this sense of like, okay, I gotta be on this, and the content's gonna be good, because you also have like the bazillion haters and detractors that will want to slam your product for the simple trollingness of it, right?
Correct.
Now, for older fellas like us, how much of that was like, I don't want to deal with this, and how much of it was like, okay, this is cool, I want to do this? Okay,
so in the beginning, I wanted to do it because I was sharing my passion, right?
Yeah.
And when the hater comments started coming in, I got mad, So my marketing guys, he's like, hold me back on a leash. It's like, I'm like, let me at him. It's like, no, you just got to let it go. You got to let it go. If you respond, guess what? That's what they wanted you to do.
Yeah.
They want to fight with you. Just let it go. And that was the hardest part in the beginning about doing that was
I know what that's like. I have someone constantly be like, don't reply, don't hit send.
No. But it's interesting because the comments is what drives
the engagement.
The engagement, and the engagement drives the views, and the algorithm catches it and says, you know what? All these people are enjoying fighting about your posts. I'm going to send it to another million people, and it's incredible. But when you talk about riding the wave, that's not my first job.
Yeah.
My first job is to go out there and cut and work on applications and work with our customers, distributors. So time to time, and you may see it when you follow FlameTech, I'll always have a FlameTech Friday post, but I may not have posts every day otherwise, because it depends on what's going on in my life at the time at work and so on and so forth. So you may see some waves that are going up and down, but I'll get back to it as soon as I have an opportunity.
So again, let's draw back into the timeline. So your friends bring you in, you're working for this, you start understanding this is a big learning curve. Like if you've not been a part of this industry you come in.
Never fired up a torch in my life. Never
Right.
struck an arc in my life.
So now you just got plopped into this industry that is encompassing of a bazillion things. And not only that, there's a lot of competition.
Correct.
Right? There's a lot of people out there that are trying to do what you do. And even if it's at the micro level of Flame Tech or the company or the macro level of the distributors, there's competition at every level, right? So, what was that learning curve for you like coming in, not having that experience? What did you have to start understanding really quick and like right at the top?
Many things, through orientation and I'm there. I'm like, what am I doing? I have no clue. So things were a little bit different, back in the early days of welding distributors. So what they would do is, I hate to use the term right now because it's kind of topical, but grooming. They groom you for that position. They are going to teach you how to sell their product their way. So it's in their best interest for you to be clean, no misconceptions, no things,
Be transparent.
It's totally. So you're coming in as a child, sponge, and they're saying, this is our product, this is how we want you to sell it. If I came from another competitor and I'm bringing that culture into their business, it may even be more difficult because I have to erase what I've already learned.
You have to unlearn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was tough, but I don't know if you've seen the videos here lately. For some reason, there's several of them been posted about people rolling cylinders.
Right.
2 cylinders at a time.
Yeah.
That was my first learning curve because they wouldn't allow me to sell stuff to people because I didn't know what the stuff was.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the dock. Okay. And we were a satellite store, so we got a truck that would back up to the dock. And this was a 2-level dock because we were a small store. The store originally was a chicken stand for selling fried chicken.
Did it still smell like fried chicken all those years later?
No, the company bought it and turned it into Welding Supply. So it's ground level store. So they had to have a tiered dock system because our delivery truck would back up, and the first dock had to be the size of the delivery truck. The second dock had to be the size of a pickup truck, and then more steps to go in the store. The problem is to get from the top dock to the lower dock was about a 45-degree ramp.
That'll just slide. They'll just go.
No, they don't. Well, they do when you first start with a company and not done it before, right? So I roll them off the dock or off the truck, and I'm thinking I'm good. I'm doing them 1 cylinder at a time at this point. One kick, one twist, kick.
Yeah.
And they were bound to determine if you're going to do this, because we don't have all day to unload the truck. It's that trial by fire situation.
2 at a time.
If this is going to work out for you, you have to load them 2 off at a time, because otherwise it's going to take you twice as long to unload that truck. So the first time, I learned how to.
Once you get it just spinning in your hand, right? Once
I
you got
it spinning in my hand, I'm coming off, and this is the first time I hit the ramp with 2 cylinders, and I'm confident, right? I got this. I hit the ramp. I don't have it anymore. The cylinders just went flying. And
what was in them? Something safe, like argon, like it ain't gonna explode?
No, just oxygen. And the racket, because this is about a 2-foot drop with the ramp.
Oh yeah.
Ding, 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 and they're just rolling across, and here comes the door flying open, thinking I killed myself out there or something. And so that was a learning curve. And it's interesting that that's a skill that never goes away. I love it when I go to a shop and I can grab 2 cylinders and zip across the shop, and everyone's like, "Holy cow! Where did you learn how to do that?"
So I've never been able to get real good at the 2. I can do it, but I got to think about it a bit too much. Once you're not thinking about it, then you got it, right?
It's all about productivity. The guy that used to work in our fill room, our high pressure fill room, did 3 cylinders. He put 1 in the bend of his arm.
No.
It was amazing.
Really?
It was amazing. But unfortunately, we're at a time now where safety is an issue, so most of those cylinders are moved by hand truck now.
Yeah, hand truck, and there's ones that can move multiple cylinders.
Right, so
most
of the delivery trucks are going to have palletized stacking and stuff. So.
Which is probably better.
Yeah.
Not as cool.
But you know what? I would not be here where I am today if I wasn't rolling those cylinders down the dock. And, it was a great experience.
And what about the industry in general? Like, for the people that aren't in the welding industry or the steel trades industry, from the outside, it's got this like look. It's got a look that we kind of fight, but on the other side, we're also proud of.
Yes.
Right? Because we're cool as hell. Like, I mean, we do cool stuff.
You know it
all the time.
Yeah.
But from the outside, it's like it's dirty, it's dangerous, it's grubby, which we're like, yeah, awesome, dirty, dangerous, grubby, love it. Now, you're plopped into this. You're learning to roll the 2 cylinders at once. You're out there, you're helping, you're learning the industry. What was your thoughts on like the welders and the steel mills and the people that you were meeting?
Yeah, so I grew up in outside of Chicago, Northwest Indiana, right near East Chicago and Gary, which is basically where all the steel mills were in the Midwest, west of Cleveland, all across Lake Michigan's shore. It's steel mills.
Yeah.
Father worked in a steel mill, the only job he had his whole life. He worked in a steel mill and he was a steel producer.
So you knew the vibe.
I knew the vibe. I knew the smell. Dad came home. You knew he was coming home from work. His car smelled like the Coke plant. It was just those those markers, feelings, sights.
You put on socks fresh out of the laundry. There's already metal in them.
Oh yeah. You go through like 2 washing machines a year.
Yeah.
Because the pumps get all ground up and all that stuff. So it was one of those things where that community I was in, if you really asked, if you took a census, a majority of the people were either working in the steel mills or working for companies that were tied to
feeding
the steel mills
yeah.
in some way or another. I don't know. I didn't have so much trouble for the steel mill, but I just didn't want to get tied down to a job like that. I was a little bit more adventurous. I was very creative. My first choice was I was going to go to art school, but don't dig back into that, please. And really what happened was I found out that, no, stop it. I found out that I'm very creative. I love art. But I am not passionate about it enough to make that my life.
That commitment.
Exactly.
'Cause that's a huge commitment.
So then you said, what do you do? Do you get a job that pays the bills and then get a hobby to feed your creative side? And that's kind of the direction that I went. And at the time, before I went to work for the distributor, I had no clue what I was going to do. Like I said, I'm driving around in my Z28 looking for chicks, right? It happens, I'm 18 years old.
I had an 85 at 28.
Yeah, I'm 18 years old. I really didn't know. College was an option. I wasn't real great in school. Smart? Yeah, I'm smart. Everyone's going to say that. But I was sharp, but I wasn't test smart. I'm more of a hands-on experience type thing. If I do something once, I can repeat that 100
You got
times.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I wasn't interested in that type of work. In trades, I was not exposed to. So even though my dad was a steel worker, he was a steel worker. It's not necessarily the trades. With the millwrights.
It wasn't like a boiler maker or whatever.
Right. Exactly. It wasn't part of that. He was actually steel production. So it's a little bit different situation. So I wasn't exposed to the trade so much, so I didn't go that direction.
Well, and most trades dads are kind of like, you don't want to know what I do. Do something else.
Yeah. So I really didn't have a direction. And when this came up, and once I got in and got the first promotion, then I was like, hey, this is all right. It's great. It's manly. We're out there working with welders and be able to be successful in that community that I grew up in without having to take that shift work job at the steel mill. So I was able to still kind of get into that group but without having to make that commitment.
Well, and I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little bit sensitive, but it is something that comes up a lot when people talk about sales. So I have a lot of friends who have even been Red Seal welders, apprenticed all the way out, very successful, and decided to go into sales as like a welding specialist for a distributor, which is a very good niche job to have, because you're the guy who can show up on a customer call,
absolutely,
and actually be able to work them through settings on a machine and blah blah blah, right? But it's the cash. People always have this idea that you're gonna get into sales and there's no money in sales, and that's something that I've always been like, no. I have friends who have done exceptionally well in sales, servicing the same industry that I'm servicing as a welder, and I need him as much as he needs me. This is a mutual relationship, so how does that work? You're a young kid, you start low like any job. What was that growth like? You said you got your first promotion. When, how long, to be realistic, just ballpark, does it take to start seeing like, okay, this job is a good job that I feel, usually it takes a few years to be like, I can do this forever, and I can maybe go somewhere with this.
Right. Yeah, it was that first move that opened my eyes and said, hey, I think I can do this. Also, that first move brought on bonuses, commission, and activities. Also, they continue to invest in me as an employee, which was basically training me free of charge, to move forward in my career. And those included, companies like Lincoln Electric. They would come to us and they'd say, give us your newest employees. We'll take them to Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
We'll beat them up for a week and we'll send them back to you.
Awesome.
And they're going to be selling welding machines. Did the same thing with ESOB, with South Carolina. We're going to beat them around for a week and then send them back with some type of
And for
understanding.
the watchers and listeners, if you ever get a chance to take any of those training courses, they're
Absolutely.
a blast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They are. And the cool thing about it is back then we're old. I hate this. I hate bringing up subjects that make me look old. So back then we didn't have internet.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Did I
like
just
phone
say
calls
that?
and visits.
We didn't have internet. I'll go one further. We did not have cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we didn't have, the world was much larger back then.
Yeah.
And when you went to a school like that or a training, you were with people from all over the country, you know? And the only way you could do it was to pick up the phone that was sticking on the wall in your house and dial a number. That was the only communication you had with these people, or write a letter. God, we're old, man.
With stamps.
We're old. So anyway, God, I've gone way off.
Yeah.
But that training was a way to meet with people within our industry. There was activities like Fabtech, but back then it was the AWS show.
Yeah.
And after I was in the industry for a couple of years, Fabtech came along. And Fabtech, people don't know, Fabtech and AWS were two separate entities. And, the meeting of the minds, like, hey, why don't we just throw these things two together and have a mega show?
Yeah.
And the rest is history, right?
Yeah, and you know that AWS, much like the CWB, both over 100 years old, right?
Absolutely.
We're basically Canada. They just drew a line between Canada and the US and said, okay, we need this type of support. But the networking is really what it's all about
It
at
is.
the end of the day, because pre-internet, pre-phones, pre any of this stuff, we still needed to network. We still needed that input of others just to know sometimes if you're on the right track, if you're not on the right track, what's going on over
Right.
there, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know if the internet has made that necessarily easier. We have way more information, but you got to now cycle through all of this to
Correct.
find the seeds that aren't garbage. You know what I mean?
What are you saying, Max?
But you know what I mean?
Have you been looking at my pictures?
No, but it's tough. So like, so I'll get mad at the internet, right? I'll get mad at the internet because I'm old and I like to get mad at the internet.
Yeah.
And it's like, someone will be like, blah, 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 you don't know welding. And I'm like, I've been doing this for like 30 years. What do you mean? What do you know? And it's like, no, take a breath. They're just learning, right? And they that's just the way it is now, to be able to just throw opinions out there.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing your stuff now, going out as a person who is on social media, who does the Friday posts and more as you can, does that ever interfere with your communications with clients? Are they ever like, oh, you're that guy?
Oh, no. So that has been a great help, because
Yeah,
when I'm out on applications, I'm recording them, I'm posting them. It's almost putting them in a file folder, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have to be right there with them or whatnot. I can send them a link, say,
Like, hey, I did this before.
yeah, he's asked me about an application. I've done it. Here it is. Go check it out.
Awesome.
And what it's nice about it is it's a quick look. And if they want more, then I can send them a longer video, or I can send them a product list of everything that we use, contacts for purchasing if needed. So it has helped, but everything grows. The interesting thing about Instagram, which was one of our first ones that we got involved with, it's a big communicator for the welding industry or the welding community in the U.S. It's not that way in other countries, not at all. It's considered entertainment, and it's separated. So you have business and you have entertainment, and if you're working, you're not on Instagram. You can do other platforms like LinkedIn or something like that. But if you're working, that Instagram and Facebook button should not get pressed until you're done working. Right?
Yeah, it's like you're not adding value to your job by doing it.
Right. So it's a little bit different in other places, but it's been great for us.
Yeah.
And we could talk about Instagram all night, and we probably should just get away from that subject.
Well, It's tricky. Like we're thinking about starting up a TikTok channel now and getting.
I got one. So I'm going to stop you for a second. And then the reason why I have one. So we were on a road trip. Me and my buddy, my partner, we do all the other stuff with, and we don't have time to get into everything like that. We do cars and all that. We were on a road trip with him and his wife, and she's a little bit younger than I am, but still a couple generations above today's TikTokers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, we're going to make a TikTok, and on our trip, we're going to do videos, and we're going to have fun, and it's all going to be on TikTok. And I so did not want to do it. But something popped into my head. I said, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and reserve my name or Flametech's name on TikTok.
Just grab it now.
Just in case. You know, somewhere down the road, I may have it. So that way we're not like Flametech Scorpion 132158, at the end of it. So it's actually our same name as it is on Instagram. So I did that and posted one video from a trip, and then it sat for years. And when Instagram decided to be more like TikTok,
with the reels and
the reels, with the short reels, all this other stuff, and I said, you know what, it looks like a TikTok. So I just basically copy paste and send it over to TikTok and see what would happen.
Yeah, when are they going to become meta partners or whatever?
Right,
so it's just all together. But
so anyway, I sent it over there, and all of a sudden I'm an influencer.
Oh,
I'm getting millions of views on my TikToks. Right?
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome.
It's crazy. But then our industry is dangerous.
Mm.
So now I'm violating community guidelines
By putting fire on
because I
them?
have fire and sparks, and someone's going to get hurt. So I don't know how long the TikTok thing will be going, but it's not our staple. It's only just a copy paste.
Yeah.
Me too, just to throw it over there, just because the content is already available.
Now, what about the difference between Instagram and LinkedIn for you? Do you use both? Are they different beasts? Are they the same thing?
They're totally different beasts. And it's funny because Axel and I were talking about this a little bit earlier with one of our partners, and I'm not as active on it yet. We're there. We're somewhat active, but I need to be more active on LinkedIn because it is a business platform, not an entertainment platform.
So we had an accident on LinkedIn where things got good unexpectedly, like your TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I use LinkedIn all the time. My Instagram does really well. All these people comment, you DM, blah blah blah. LinkedIn, it's always like flies and tumbleweed. Like no one cares.
Right.
It's like, and I've never been able to figure out: do I not talk in the right way? Am I not posting the right way? You know, there's a lot of different types of people on LinkedIn that are maybe they're too smart for me. I don't get it or something. But then we posted up a video from Cavatar where we were playing with gouging, recording it with these laser cameras. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, and it's literally just part of the fun stuff we do at work. We get to play with really cool gear all the time. And so we made these videos, and I put them on Instagram, and people are like, cool. I put it on LinkedIn. We got 35,000 views in 3 days, and it's like, I did not expect that.
Yep.
Like that. Why that? Why all? And it's like reshared by engineers and all over the world, and people sending me questions and how, and it's like, what did I do right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't even know what it is, so I'm still learning.
Well, like I said, I was talking with Axel about that today, and he explained it. He answered your question. I didn't even know it. He prepped me for this interview. He said it's more focused for business. So if you were doing that process, it is going to those people that are interested in that
specific
process.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a funnel. You know, you're not getting somebody that's looking for cake decorating and happens to stumble across your laser video.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is it's business, and it will direct you towards the business that you are interested in.
Although LinkedIn is constantly trying to get me to work somewhere else. I don't know what the algorithm is there, but it's like every day it's like, do you want to work here? It's like, no.
You know,
well, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the things that kind of turned me off on at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then I used to start having fun with it. Like if I was out working with my boss, I'm like, hey, should I go work for this company? They said they pay well, good management, good, employment possibilities. But
no, they're owned by like 14 Nigerian princes. It's got to be awesome.
They said I had to present $1,000 with my resume, right? But no, that stuff it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
All right. Well,
But one thing I wanted to add, we sort of jumped back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and I had something important to say to you, but you kept going to my childhood.
sorry.
I kept getting back into my Camaro. But so back in February, we were actually purchased. Flametech was a second generation owned, family owned
business.
company,
Yeah.
and we are now part of Messer Cutting Systems out of Germany,
Mm-hmm.
which
And Messer's big.
no big. I think they're a little bit bigger than big. Actually.
They're like big.
And it's interesting because I had no clue what I was getting into at this point.
Mhm.
I was.
Were you worried? Not with the Messer guy around, but there's always a little
Okay.
trepidation on a bot. I've been a part of a company
Yep.
takeover, and
Yes.
I was a part of a bad one once where it didn't go well, and then the company got sold off
Right,
again
right.
to somebody else, and it was like, oh,
I have a very good relationship with our vice president at the time, the owner, now CEO. Almost like a family
mm-hmm.
type of relationship with them.
Well, you've been there a long time now.
17 years with the
Yeah.
company, a lot of trust, a lot of, I guess I earned that trust
Mhm.
with them,
Mutual respect.
exactly,
right?
a lot of respect. So I knew about what was going on, not real early on, but prior to announcement, I found out about it.
Mhm.
First reaction was, obviously, it was like, oh my,
Hope you're not bumped down or out.
yeah,
or,
what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Not knowing going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But the trust I have with our owners and management was, don't worry. We are doing well. You're doing well. It's nothing to worry about. If things changes, we'll let you know. But
Yeah.
as of right now, don't worry.
You're good to go.
So then I was like, again, right? I'm like, well, that's not the answer I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear like, I don't know what I wanted to
Yeah.
hear, but it wasn't.
Congratulations, you're the new CEO.
Yeah, no, trust me, I don't want that. I do not want that one. But and what happened, we got into it, and then they came to Austin. I met some of the executive management. But the interesting about Messer is it's when you say Messer's huge, Messer is say Messer is this convention center,
Mm-hmm.
and each booth in that convention center is a different
Piece,
product
yeah,
group,
yeah.
right? And they complement each other in a lot of ways, and it's like they move through, and that's one thing that he and I were talking about today. It was like, okay, we're going to take the Messer torches and regulators, and we're going to take the Flametech torches and regulators. Let's not pick them apart so much because we both are very proud of our products.
Yeah.
But what can we do to smash them together?
Yeah, where's the crossovers?
Yeah, smash
where's
them
the
together
relationships?
and
yeah.
come out with a super torch. It's like we're going to clone the torches and fuse them.
The
and,
flame, sir.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what got me excited, And then it was like, okay, now we're going to go fly around the world and talk about your products.
Or the mess tech.
Yeah, the best tech. And actually do some training for some
Yeah.
of the other Messer locations. And that's when it really kicked in for me because I'm very passionate, about what I do, how I do it, who I do it with. And that gave me another avenue, to take my talents, my knowledge, and actually pass it on, to other people. There's only so many people that will listen to me, and now I'm flying across the world, so I'm finding more people that'll actually listen.
Yeah,
to me,
and I think in my experience that people like yourself, people want to listen,
Mhm.
and maybe a lot of people underestimate the amount of people
Right.
out there that they actually do care, and you feel like, well, why would you listen to me? But then it's like 100% they will.
Well, the problem that people have, and they get upset about it, is they try to tell people that don't want to listen. That they may not have any interest at all, but they feel like you have to listen to me. I have something to say, and you're going to listen, and you're like,
Out.
no, I don't.
Yeah,
I have no interest in hearing about how you make your lunch.
yeah.
but-
Well,
but that's just an example.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but so what we talked about LinkedIn and even some of the Instagram stuff is you find those people
mhm.
that want to listen to you. It gives you direction. It's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden I've got a list of people that I know that they'll listen to me because they've already expressed that.
Yeah.
They already said they're doing Oxy-Fuel. They already said that they're doing this application. They already said that maybe they're putting in new equipment or whatever, because LinkedIn has a lot of information like that. And that gives you that direction to go with your words. You
Yeah.
know, so.
All right. Well, this is a great time to take a little break for our commercials. We'll just be back here with Chuck from Flametech/Messer now,
Yeah.
and then stay tuned. And we got lots more questions. And I got some technical questions for you
Oh no.
after the break. So we'll be back on the CWB Association podcast.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at cwbassociation.org.
And we are back on the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron. I'm here with Chuck Faught from Flametech, and we are learning about his steps and role in the company, over these last 17 years and moving into it. We talked a little bit about your learning curve of getting into the industry. We talked a little bit about the Z28, which is a beautiful car. Love it. They're fun.
I love how you call it a Z28.
Well, it's Canadian. It's a Z28, not a Z.
That's funny.
So then, we got all these things down. And as you progress through this career, 17 years, a lot of technology has come into the cutting world. A lot of technology has even come into the redesign of even old, what we would consider just standard equipment, is now perhaps not so standard. So how has Flametech's, growth in your opinion over these last 17 years been with, this new technologies, the new developments, the new styles? How does that work, and how have you seen it happen?
So the interesting thing is Oxy-Fuel technology as a whole has not changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
And within Flametech, what we did is, instead of reinventing the wheel, aside from where we got started is redesigning tips or whatnot. What we did is okay, this guy's already using the torch. What can we add to that torch? What can we give him to maybe give him a better performance or better comfort, so on and so forth. So we have products. One is our Easy Cut. It's a cutting guide. There's no motor in it. It's just
snaps
like
on
a gear reduction motor. It's a small track, but it regulates your speed. And the whole point is to take two factors out of how you get a quality cut. And two of those factors is the couple distance, or the height of the tip. The other is your speed. Those two alone are extremely important and will determine how much grinding you're going to be doing afterwards. So, and then the other aspects are basically just setting your regulators correctly and using the proper size tip. So those four things, there may be a few things thrown in here and there, but those are the four main things that you need to do.
Now, how often do you get in front of a welder and you're like, okay, the height, speed, we got this cool tool that we've invented that will help you be better. And he says, no, all right, I can be just as good, or I'm just as awesome. Right. And he may be, but how do you get past that like, well, take a look, play with the toy,
Yeah, it's all about getting the message out there and saying, this is my toy, and really putting your hand up there. I've got this, and letting the people accept it that are, and don't fight too much of the people that aren't. Eventually,
that's on them.
Eventually they may come back to you, but you got to take the message to the right audience. Especially when you're marketing a product, because everyone's not going to use it. There's been comments about, oh, that's cheating. They're training wheels. Yada yada yada. There's two aspects. In one, it is training wheels. It can be, I should say, for a tech school.
A novice, someone's new. Yeah,
exactly. because you're taking a couple of those factors out,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they can watch the cut now. They don't have to worry about dropping the torch and hitting the material or raising up as they're. I know you've done it before.
Oh, yeah, for
where
sure.
All of a sudden you raise it up and or you're pulling back, and all
Your
of a sudden
curve starts getting
you
all
realize
yeah.
that you're like 6 inches off the material. It's like, what happened?
Why is the top of my curve all bubbly
Exactly.
and weird?
So this takes that out. So
Yeah.
it really allows you to focus on watching the spark pattern and things like that. So in a way, it's training wheels. Second is the term work smarter, not harder, right?
Mhm.
So if you're working out in the field, maybe not so much in the shop because you've got a lot more tools available to you in the shop, but out in the field, you've got a service truck. That every square inch of that service truck is valuable real estate,
That's
right?
right.
So if you can have something in that truck that takes up a small footprint but can produce a quality end result, you're going to jump on it.
Yeah, and shave off some time that you are charging for. So,
Exactly.
I mean, take it, right?
Now, if you had a motorized track machine,
Like a little buggy or something.
it would
yeah.
take up way too much real estate on that service truck.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have place to put your cylinders, your welder, your PPE, your hoses, your leads. You know, there's all that stuff has a home.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you don't have any room for your welding rods. And then what are you going to do with a welding machine without welding rods, right? So that is very important, that footprint. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another audience that listen to our stuff and saying, you know what, I don't care if he says I'm working with training wheels because I am getting paid for this job. And if it takes me twice as long to do that job, I get half the money that I normally would, right? Because I'm doing a job, not necessarily on the hour. A lot of these guys that are working for themselves, they're not on the clock.
Yeah.
They
that's
bid a
right.
job,
Yeah.
and if that job runs over, they get less money.
That's right.
So stuff like that's very important. And another product that we introduce that's like that is an exothermic adapter. So exothermic is some of the industry terms are Slice and Broco and
Mm-hmm.
some others, Oxylance. So it allows you to cut anything basically,
Yeah.
or
it's
melt
ju-
anything.
Just mega heat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people see the big long lances and stuff.
Yeah.
But so what we got is an adapter that you put in a cutting torch. You take your cutting tip out and put this adapter on, and we can run up to 3/8 rods in it. And all we're doing is passing oxygen through the rod. We light it, pass it through, and it's gonna burn at super heat until you let go of the oxygen
Yeah,
lever.
they're magnesium or something inside.
Some
aren't
of them
they?
are.
Yeah.
Ours are just carbon steel, so
Okay,
it's nothing
yeah.
fancy there. And it's a great product. But the nice thing about it is about the size of a coffee mug.
Oh, nice.
And remember when I talked about the square inches in a service
Mhm.
truck?
Yeah.
I was saying, wait a minute. If I had this big pack with batteries and strikers and holders and all this stuff, leads, that's a big footprint on that truck. But
That's
we can
right.
give him something the size of a coffee mug. If he runs out of room in the back, he can put his cup holder, in his truck. So it's
Yeah.
very small. And that's been a great, great product for us.
So, we're talking about the Oxy-Fuel cutting,
Mm-hmm.
and then in terms of the equipment and what you have available to you. And I really don't like when people knock on things like the training wheels comment. I kept thinking about that. And I remember years ago someone said to me, like, why is a crutch bad? Right? Like, it's like, well, why are you using that? You need a crutch. And so if you see someone with a broken leg on the street using a crutch, you go kick the crutch out from them and be like, walk.
Yeah.
No, like, I mean, sometimes it's okay. And why not? Why would you not use a tool
Mhm.
that makes your job easier? Like, it's like, yeah, okay, I only buy one wrench.
Right.
I don't like wrench sets. Wrench sets are stupid. I only like a 3/8.
I'm going to buy them one at a time
Yeah.
as I need them.
Like, I mean, it seems such a silly way to look at the industry in general.
Yeah.
But you said that it hasn't really progressed in some ways because, well, at the end of the day, it's a 1-to-1 ratio of acetylene or whatever it is, natural gas, propane, whatever you're using, and they burn how they burn, right? You're looking at comfort, you're looking at ease, you're looking at space, footprints, shape. Now, what are some of the perhaps more subtle, I guess, innovations that have made perhaps the physical cutting better? Has there been advances in gases? Has there been advances, in terms of how the tips heat up or manage or light or anything like that? And I'm not sure. Like, curious.
So in recent years, not so much in a lot of it, I thought so anyway, until we got exposed to more of the Messer stuff. In general, a majority of those improvements are going to be physical
Yeah.
design. that may be a little bit more ergonomic or it may be a little bit more
Yeah,
durable.
okay.
But the process itself hasn't. So it hasn't changed.
The science is the science.
For general hand cutting, not a whole lot of changes. We've made some changes to our heavy industry stuff, but a lot of it comes down to durability and in performance, not so much the core of the design. Messer, on the other hand, on their Oxy-Fuel side, they have developed and have patented torches that are cutting with the quality of plasma, which
Wow.
is insane.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it until I seen it,
Yeah.
But yeah, some of the technology they have, the broad knowledge,
The R&D,
man, they just blow me away, and every time I turn around, there's something else going on. So I'd say within the automation side, there's definitely some changes. Some of the heating applications, yes, there's been some advancements. Majority of it is saying new applications come up, or the user's no longer happy with the results that they were getting.
Oh yeah, and they're looking for an improvement.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So they're
Yeah.
like, this works great, but
Yeah.
I want to hold on it this way instead of that way, or it's not lasting as long, or can it be water cooled, or
Well, I don't think I've ever used a water-cooled Oxy-Fuel torch.
well, the torch itself.
Is that a thing?
Well, yes. Well, but you're probably not going to hold it in your hand. So in steel production, we use water-cooled torches. They're straight barrel torches because they're sitting above 1600 degree material. Actually, can be when it first comes out of the caster. You're looking at 2400 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the water has to run through there to keep it from melting. Yeah, exactly.
Now, earlier you brought up a thing that is interesting for people that are learning about Oxy-Fuel,
Mhm.
and that is the different types of tips used for different types of gases.
Yes.
You talked about splined, you talked about straight through barrels. So for the people out there that are not familiar with the different types of tips for gases,
Mhm.
why? First, what's the difference between your standard Oxy-Fuel tip and you want to go to natural gas?
Correct.
You need a different tip. It's not going to work real great
Nope.
unless you change that tip.
Right.
What's the difference and why?
Okay, so the main difference, or the first one that we'll talk about, is the difference in the gas itself, in the rate that gas burns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, acetylene burns at a much faster rate. So when you look at the end of your cutting tip, right, acetylene tip is going to be flush. You see your orifices right there, flush, because the gas is burning back fast enough to where it will stay on the
Right
end
on
of
the
that
end,
tip,
yeah.
right? Propylene. Well, we'll go in stages, right?
Yeah, okay.
Propylene, propane, natural gas.
Okay.
So those are the levels. And there's various differences of propane mixtures that have carbohydrate, but they're all going to fall into that propane category. So acetylene, flush. Propylene has a slight recess. And the reason being is it doesn't burn off as fast as acetylene does. It's going to want to push off. It's not burning back into the torch.
Yeah.
So one thing you got, I guess an example that I always use is the gas is always when you light it, it wants to go back to where it came from.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to follow the source.
It's going to follow the source. So a couple things happen. You got to make sure you got enough flow, because otherwise it's going to follow the source. And it's going to go through the torch, through the hose, and so on and so forth. Right.
Pop. Yeah.
So the propylene doesn't burn off as quickly as acetylene does. So you have to put that recess. You have to give it that distance between the splining or the orifices and the edge of the shell. You have to give them that little gap. Okay, so it's burning back. If you take acetylene, we're going to take a quick here. We take acetylene and use one of those tips with the recess.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to burn back faster. It's going to flash back. It's going to blow the mixer up, and it's not going to be a good day. Right?
It's not a good day. No.
So we'll step up to the propane. So
Okay.
the propane, that recess goes a little bit deeper. So if we try to run propane on a propylene tip, you'll get to where once you get your torch set and you hit your cutting oxygen, those cones are going to want to lift off of the end of yours because we don't have that distance, right? So we have to have that extra little recess. Natural gas is going to use that same recess, but it is going to burn off even a little bit slower than the propane does.
Now, what about the number of orifices? You go to an acetylene tip, you got 6.
Yep.
Right? You go to propane, you got a dozen. You go to natural gas, you got like some of them got like 20,
Yeah.
right? And in different rings, you'll even have like multiple rings on depending on the size. Why? What's the difference? Who cares?
All right, it's a great question, and this comes up quite a bit. So if you have an acetylene torch, you have six preheat orifices on that torch, and then your center cutting oxygen. The number of orifices is going to determine the preheat of that flame. Acetylene's primary flame, 57. I hate using exact numbers because anyway, 57, 5800 degrees primary flame.
Fahrenheit for the Canadians.
So that's what you get with 6 orifices, right?
Mhm.
So we step over to propane, right? We're going to skip over the propylene. We're going to go to propane. If we make that tip with 6 orifices,
They'll never get hot enough.
no, because we're only at 2700 degrees,
Mhm.
right? So what do? Double them.
Double it
Double
up.
them up, right? So now we're able to get some more BTU because we got more little flames going, right?
Yeah, BTUs
Right,
in there.
right.
Yeah.
So this takes me back to the beginning when we talked about Flame Tech, when Chuck Toops, our founder, said, you know what, I'm going to make this better.
Mhm.
So he wasn't happy with 12. He wanted more. He wanted
Mhm.
more. The more I put on there, the hotter it's going to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then you run into a problem. So this is a 2-piece tip. You have a center stem with splining on it, and then you have the shell, and then your tip nut holds it
So
all
why
together.
splines? Not to jump you off track, but why? Is that?
That's the direction I'm going.
all right.
That's the
Okay.
direction
I'm
going.
interested.
There's 2 reasons. So one is basically it gets turbulent
Flow,
in there, and
yeah.
it gets everything mixed up nice. The other is we're not drilling straight through. We got the splines. We can make more splines.
Mm.
So if we just did straight fin splines all the way around, we could get maybe 12 or whatever.
Mhm.
But then we changed the shape of the splines. So now we're playing. We got V splines, we got rectangular splines. So by doing that, there's different things you can achieve. So if we go V spline, we get more splines in there. If we go rectangular splines, it could be more durable, longer lasting tips. So there's a lot of things we can do that. But his idea was, I'm going to put more splines in there.
Mhm.
And that's how we developed our tips for propylene,
Okay.
because they were competing against acetylene.
Yeah.
And you know what? I used acetylene. My daddy used acetylene.
Yeah.
My
And I love
granddaddy used
acetylene, but it's
acetylene.
going out.
My great granddaddy invented acetylene. You know, you get all the
Yeah,
stories,
yeah.
right? So he doesn't want to switch. So to go out there and say it's just the same or perform, you don't want to just do just as good as acetylene. You want to outperform it. So they said, okay, we got the gas. We're going to put a tip in there that's going to bring you to that level. Okay.
And for anybody who's like throwing a propane tank onto their Oxy-Fuel setup and tried to use it as an acetylene torch, you got a long day ahead of you. Like
Yeah.
that's a slow process, and it's going to be really hard to get that oxidization
Yeah.
level up. Right now, does this, like with splines, as soon as you add splines in, I start thinking of plasma and swirl rings and how by spinning you can increase speed.
Mhm.
Does that have anything to do also, like, because with propane, natural gas, propylene, you're using way more pressure. Acetylene, you're very limited in the pressure
Mhm.
just because it's danger. It's 27 at 0 atmosphere or whatever it is.
Mhm.
You're dead,
Mhm.
right? But propane and natural gas, like, give her, son, until the tank's empty, right?
Just keep it going until the lines freeze up.
That's right. That's right. Now, will the splines help with getting more flow out as well?
Yeah. There's a pocket. So in a tip, you have a seat or a button,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what connects to the torch itself. And depending on what kind of torch you have, there's several designs. So we have a torch that has a mixer in the tube. So the 2 gases come in the back, the 2 preheat gases, the acetylene or fuel gas, Oxy-Fuel. They come in together in the mixer. They mix. They travel the rest of the length of the torch, and then they go through the one seat, the preheat seat on that tip, and then come out, right? So there's that type of torch. There's one that's a head mix where the mixer's in the head itself.
yeah.
There's one that has a mixer in the head, or an injector type mixer in the head, which is like a Harris.
Yeah.
And then we have a tip mix, which is more like what a lot of our designs are tip mix, that similar to an Airco or a Concoa.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we have that 2-piece tip, and inside that spline where there's a little cavity, and what happens is the preheat gases come through. Sometimes they're mixed ready, sometimes they're not, but it gives them extra area to
Do their thing.
thing, dance around, they're cha-chaing down through the orifice, and then when they come out, they're going to be
Ready
better
to go,
mixed,
ready to burn.
and they're also going to be stable. So what
Nice.
happens is when they come through the orifices and they fall in line in the splines, guess what? The splines are straight line out the door. So
Mhm.
all the preheat gases come in, hit the splines, and straight out. So it's giving them a direction.
Now, aside from preheat, is that same kind of technology or thought affect the depth of the cut? How far? You said your record's 67 inches.
65. Don't give me that
65.
credit.
All right, 65 inches. It looked bigger in the pictures,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
does the tip have lots to do with that depth aside from diameter, size? But does flow? Does all that have to do with the depth? Because that's really where Oxy-Fuel kills plasma.
Right.
Everyone's all about plasma until you got to cut something an inch thick. Good luck, right? And then that's when you got to figure out what am I going to do for the big heavy stuff, right?
Right. Well, the answer is all of the above. I
Yeah.
think you answered it many ways. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens when you use Oxy-Fuel to cut steel?
It's rapid oxidization, so I break down the molecular structure, allow oxygen to come in, break down the bonds. The carbon comes out of the back.
I knew you were going to do that. Is why I asked that question. So to make it simpler, or to piggyback on what you just said,
Yeah.
the rapid oxidation or rusting, and what you're doing. How does that happen? Oxygen flow, right? So the oxygen is consumed not only by your preheats, but at that chemical reaction that takes place.
Mhm.
So you have to flow, another one of your answers, you have to flow a certain amount of oxygen to cut a certain thickness, okay? Some will say that there's a calculation for the orifice size to the thickness where you can calculate that out.
Mhm.
And what it really does is it finds flow.
Yeah,
It's
the sweet spot.
Exactly. So if I've got a piece of steel that is 1 inch thick, there is a given, I don't know the number, but there's going to be a given volume of oxygen that is consumed to pass through that material to create the chemical reaction.
And have it clean without having too much oxygen left behind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's flow. So the larger the orifice in the cutting oxygen, we multiply that out, or this and that, or we can just say it's this size, so it's going to flow X amount of oxygen, and that X amount of oxygen consumed at whatever rate it may be is going to result in 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 30 inch. So it's all about the flow or the volume of the oxygen. Preheat is really, when we get into thick cutting, it's to get things started.
Just to get it going, yeah.
And quality of cut. So
Yeah.
if we're scrapping, we only need to get that top edge going. And once we create the reaction, we can just go ahead and cut. But your quality is not going to be that great, because if you get the reaction created with your preheat, and all of a sudden you cut along, and a lot of people will say, well, I can shut off my preheat and still cut. You can, as long as you establish that reaction and continue to
Yeah, but
provide
if you
oxygen.
snuff out or jiggle or something,
It's
you're
over.
done.
It's
Yeah.
over with. It's over.
Yeah.
With. So what'll happen is if you don't have enough preheat, or if it's not getting down deep into that part,
Mhm.
you're only cutting with oxygen or only reacting with oxygen. So it'll be a very rough, serrated surface.
Yeah.
So what you want is you want to be able to drag that preheat down or heat that metal to where it soaks down through that part, and it'll give you a very smooth cut.
Get that mirror finish.
Right.
Yeah.
People talk about preheat.
Yeah.
I'm going to preheat before I cut. There's a lot of good advice there, because if you just do a little bit quick preheat, you're getting that soak down in, and your cut is going to be a ton smoother, your cut face, than if you don't preheat. So that's where that whole preheat.
Yeah, and even the science of it, like you get rid of the hydrogen that's in the plate, you get out, you pull out some of the other stuff, you allow for, it reacts better.
Right.
So
Right.
Okay, next question. Because now I'm on a tech
Oh,
run
we're
here.
going
Yeah, I
technical.
can't help it.
It's been a long day.
That's for all of us, my friend. So, Oxy-Fuel, what do you see more as a mistake when you go out to work with customers? Too small of a tip on a big plate or too big of a tip on a small plate? Which is the one people are more likely to do, to be like, I'm not getting the quality cuts that I should be getting?
It goes two ways. So it depends on the application. I'd say majority of it's going to be too big of a tip to the size of the material, because they want to be general. They don't want to change tips.
They want a
out.
number 4 that'll do everything.
Yeah. So they're like, well, if I'm cutting 1/4 inch up through 1 inch, I'm just going to get number 1 and I'm going to cut it all. Yeah, it'll cut it all, but the quality of cut on that 1/4 inch is going to be horrible.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible, and you're going to spend more time grinding it.
Yeah.
Where you should just go ahead and take your wrench, pop that tip out, put the proper tip in.
And what about the trick about leaning the tip over so that you get the length on the hypotenuse?
It works down to a certain level.
Yeah.
But if you get down like 1/4 inch range, you're putting too much heat into that plate. Even if you angle it, the whole point about the angling thing is to try to
Find the
deflect
meat.
some of that
Yeah,
heat. Yeah. You're still putting a lot of heat into it, you know. So it's a shortcut that I don't
Recommend.
I don't
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah.
I'm big on those 4 things. Remember,
Mhm.
you set your regulators the way they should be set. You put the proper tip in there, couple distance, speed. Those are
yeah.
the most important things.
All right. Next one. In terms of heating tips, what's the biggest issue you find with people using heating tips?
Number 1, every day, all day long, they starve them.
Mm-hmm.
You do not give them enough fuel, and they burn up.
I always say that to my students. I say, look, the sales guy will sometimes come by, and I'm talking not about a professional that knows it well, but there's sometimes just generalized salespeople that show up and they open the book. You see heating tips. The first thing you're going to do is pick the biggest one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want
Bigger's
that one.
better.
Number
Bigger's
12. Look at that. It'll heat this thing up in 2 minutes, you know. And then it's pop, 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 slam, 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 wheeze, 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 boom, crash.
Right.
Everyone goes running, right?
Well, the other thing happens is they say they want the biggest one, and it comes back to that whole thing. I'm going to use the same tip for 1 inch all the way down to 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
So they want to buy the largest heating head and use it from that all the way down to just real quick stuff. Problem with the heating head is you cannot throttle them. You can't throttle them back. If it requires X amount of flow,
That's it.
you have to give it X amount of flow. When you throttle it back, if you have a little hiccup, it's going to burn back and you're going to have a bad day. So
Now, I was told a trick from an old timer once, and I'm going to ask you to say if this is wrong. Tell me if it's wrong. It's okay. But he told me that if you got an oversized heating tip, which we are in agreement is not good, and it doesn't take much to be oversized.
Right.
Like, I mean, a full-size acetylene bottle.
Oh, so we're talking acetylene on this.
Yeah, so
Okay.
let's say, for this example, this is an acetylene bottle. You know, you're only going to get X amount of pressure at that because now you got withdrawal rates that you got to deal with and blah, 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 right? Now, he said if you're having it pop and backfire on you too much because you obviously are starving the tip, to run it carburized. Run the tip carburized. So like so that you have like the big long feathers and you might even blacken the plate a little bit, but it won't pop. How wrong is that? Or how is everything in your brain being like, don't do that?
In so many ways, it's wrong. Can I answer it that way? So that's funny. So when you set your torch to a carburizing flame, you're not producing heat.
That's right.
So why
You're there 10 times longer.
No, you're not doing anything. And you got little like squirrely things flying through the air.
They're landing on you. You're breathing in spider webs.
No, that's the general answer. You know, no, because you're not creating any heat. So
and the reason I threw that out there is because there is a lot of that.
There is
a lot of that in the industry. And every shop I've go to, there's always like, hey, I got a trick for you. And then you're like, are you sure that's a trick? Or are you trying to prank me right now?
I'm going to use an example going to the mechanic side, the mechanic side of me. It is an example about using the right tip, right? A wrench. Do you call them spanners? I know they do over here in Europe. But
No, we're not that weird.
Okay. You're not that weird.
No.
Okay. So I've got a nut. I'm going to go back to America on that one. It's a 1/2 inch on a bolt. I only have a 9/16 wrench. Or no, I take that back. I have a 1/2 inch, but I have a handy 9/16 wrench. I'm going to stick it on there, but then I'm going to jam a screwdriver in there.
Yeah. Fill the gap.
And get it off, right?
Yeah.
Or I could have went back to the toolbox and got the 1/2 inch, right?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You know, if you got the tool, put it in there. You got a cutting torch with a number 00 tip.
Yeah.
Put it in there.
Yeah. It's just so much better.
Don't struggle. Don't struggle. Or if you're working on something and you're using a crescent wrench for everything, but it's hard to get it in there, it's tight. Why? Go back to the toolbox, use the proper tool,
absolutely.
for the application.
And we're coming up close to the end of the interview. Like, we've already blown past an hour here.
Are you serious?
She hasn't started yelling at me yet, but usually by now she's like,
I'm not ready. I'm not done.
No, I know. You were like, I'm not sure we got stuff to talk about, dude.
Oh my God.
Like,
Part 2 coming soon.
yeah. So as I go through my notes here, what about the gas supply side? You know, when you go out as a rep now for the tool,
Mhm.
do you have to talk manifolds? Do you have to talk gas supply? Is that something that's a part of the flame tech world, or do you say, look, you need to talk to your supply, Praxair or whatever, and say you need to get proper manifolds
Right.
put in or whatever?
A little bit of both. So
Yeah.
it depends on the scope of what's needed. We do not supply gas.
Mhm.
There's two things that happen. Each gas supplier is going to have their own, they're going to have a common regulation that they have to abide by. In most cities or states, it's going to be a fire code type of situation, an FPA, I think it is.
Mhm.
That's first. And then the second is any type of regulation that company may have in place themselves. So you have to take that into consideration. So when you start putting bulk systems in, dropping propane tanks, storage facility for cylinders, so on and so forth, you have to look into all that. We do not get involved at all. So what we can do is once that's determined, once the bulk system is in and they pipe it into the building, that's when we can get involved. We might be able to put a regulator on the bulk tank or supply side or a flashback arrestor, but that's just components. But what we get involved is once we get inside, and that's when my brain starts ticking and looks at something and said, why are you doing it that way? You know, I'm a solution provider. Everything that I do is pretty much solution based, one way or another. So I'm looking, I'm like, well, that don't make no sense.
Yeah.
You know, why do you have it that way? We can configure it this way, and it's going to make things so much easier for you.
Yeah, and
you know?
probably cheaper in the end because you just didn't go through all the hassle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So from the point of delivery of the gas to the use of the gas, that's our jam.
Yeah.
Right there. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we can make recommendations, unofficial.
Yeah, like, hey, the network comment. Right? Like, I know a guy.
Right, unofficial recommendations, but I'd say this is what I see out there, and this is who has done it.
Mhm.
You know, contact him, whatever.
Yeah.
We do not do piping, recommendations, sizing, all that stuff. It's
Yeah,
not
and you don't want to even go down that
No,
rabbit hole because
no.
that's not your liability.
exactly.
All right, so what's the category of fuels that you use for burning? You know, you say Oxy-Fuel. We're talking propane, propylene, natural gas, and acetylene. Okay. What about kerosene systems? Do they still exist? Are they still out there? Remember the old pump kerosene?
Yeah, those blow torches.
Yeah,
they
blow
call
torches,
them blow
yeah.
torches. That is a different industry,
Yeah,
I guess I could say.
it's more for welding.
No,
Okay. What is it for?
I haven't ran one. I'm just going on what I might have experiences.
Yeah.
So you've got to pump up. So there's no oxygen
That's right.
involved. It's just
Pressure.
It's pressure and atmospheric air. It sucks it in, Venturi effect, and creates a flame. From what I understand, I don't work with them at all. But from what I understand, it's more of a brazing application or a soldering application rather than the welding.
Because I really know nothing about it either, but I see
don't
people
think-
do it with aluminum, and I'm like, that looks pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think it gets hot enough to gas weld.
Yeah, because kerosene would burn at a much lower temperature.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that they're getting some, depending on what level of heat they have, it's either going to be soldering or brazing. My guess.
All right. One more technical question, and then we'll go out on a couple general ones.
Mhm.
Last technical question, settle it once and for all. And I know you're probably going to give me the answer that it's probably not going to make everyone happy, but flashback arrester.
Yes.
Where do you need them? How many and why?
Oh, it's people hate me when I go do. Well, no, not people. Companies do not like
Mm-hmm.
my answer to that when I do safety presentations.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I said, the flashback arrestor is not there to protect that individual operator directly. It's there to protect all y'all.
Yeah. The
It's
hole in the
building,
wall.
everything.
That's going to happen.
You're protecting the source.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny when I say that, they immediately come back at me and go, wait a minute, you're wrong. I said, where is that guy holding that torch? Right on the handle.
Mhm.
Where are you putting the flash arrestor? Behind the handle. Wait, And he's like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So,
Yeah.
so where do you put the flash stressor? My recommendation, and typically Flame Tech's recommendation, is going to be at the regulator.
Right after the regulator. Yeah.
Right, coming out, your hose goes to the flash arrestor to the regulator. Main reason being is you have vulnerability in your hose.
Yeah.
So if you have the flash arrestor just on your torch there, and something happens with your
Somebody
torch,
runs over it, kicks it,
piece of
whatever,
steel falls
yeah.
on it, it's hot, melts it, boom. Now all of a sudden you've got stuff, and there's nothing on the regulator. Your system is not protected anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to protect the system. If you're not tied to the torch. You know, if
You can run.
right, no, you drop it.
Yeah.
I mean, and this
Yeah.
is something that we actually train people on. What do you do when you experience a flashback?
Mhm.
You one, get it out of your hand.
Yeah.
You know, get rid of it. It's not strapped to you. Just
Yeah.
drop it calmly.
Yeah.
Go to your source and shut your source off.
Yeah.
Easy.
You got
peasy.
time. You got time.
Easy
Yeah.
peasy, right? So what people don't know is when you do experience a flashback, it's not always so fast. You know, everyone says, "Oh, it's speed of light."
No.
You know,
I've
shooting
seen
through
them
the-
go down. You
shooting
got
through
a
the
few
universe, right?
seconds. Yeah.
It's not that way. So if the gases were mixed together at the regulator, and we're mixed together all the way back, and this is an example, and I'll tell you a little bit about it in a minute, then it will shoot back at that high rate of speed.
Yeah.
But if the gases are not mixed,
Which they should never be if they're purged properly.
exactly, exactly. Or if you've got an obstruction that overcomes your oxygen's higher pressure, so if it overcomes the fuel gas
Kicks
and
it
you don't
back.
have check valves in place and all this other stuff, it's going to pressurize the fuel gas side. If that's not happening, we just have pure fuel gas coming through, right? And it gets ignited. What does it do?
It burns. It
It
looks
just
rocky.
flickers
Yeah,
around like a
yeah,
candle,
yeah.
right? Until it
gets
burns
oxygen.
through the oxygen
Yeah,
side of the hose, and eventually that'll catch, and then you'll have some fireworks at that.
You'll
point.
have some
Yeah.
go time going.
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, and if you haven't gotten back to the regulators by that time, you stopped and take a lunch break or something, because that's going to take a while to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story for a short answer, but regulator. Final
Yeah.
answer.
What about both? Is there a detriment to doing both?
It depends on the application. So if you're doing general cutting and you have flash arrestors that are capable of floating or exceeding the flow requirements, yeah, it's not a problem.
It's not going to hurt you.
No, as long as you are matching up your flow requirements of your operation or your torch tip to what those flash arrestors in combination are going to supply you,
That's right.
along with the hose, diameter of hose, length of hose.
And for the people out there, when you go buy flashback arresters, read the package. It's not like you just grab one off the wall
No.
and take it home.
No.
Like I've seen people do that. Oh, just grab 5 of those. Well, there's more than one kind.
Right. So what I see a lot is the small ones. They're just small, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches long.
The barrel ones.
Yeah, you just screw them on the back of the torch. Those are small. They're good for general, cutting a couple inches. That's fine. You're fine with that. But if we start getting where we're cutting 12, 16, 20 inches, they're not good enough.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to stress that there's more to it than just the flash arrestors. It is the flash arrestors, the flow of those, the size of your hose, length of your hose, and here's the kicker. How many splices are in that hose, right? So every time you do that, you reduce flow.
Yeah.
So even if you have a fresh, clean, brand new hose and you put 2 flash arrestors in there, you're looking at a minimum 25% reduction in flow.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Plus a splice
Right.
now. And
So now we're over 100 feet. Throw another 25% in
Yeah.
there. So there's a lot of things you got to match up. So it's matching that up. So we have general flash arrestors. We have high flow for the torch, high flow for point of use, and then we have our banked flash arrestors, which our Dmax flows 10,000 cubic foot an hour of airflow, and then you can convert the airflow to whatever gas you're using. And then beyond the Dmax, we have our Cymexes, which start as 3 canisters that are all tied together into one in and out. Cymex 3, 5, and 8. I never thought I would sell a Cymex 8. It's massive. I would say
what size of a
8
hose is going into that? Like a 1-inch hose? Like what is that?
for pipeline?
Yeah.
So this is going to be the way the flash arrestor filters work. It's surface area, right?
Mhm.
It's surface area. So the more surface area you have, the more flow you're going to get through it. So reduce the surface area, because what it is, it's a stainless steel mass. It's a porous mass that you have to pass that gas through. So the more of that you have, the easier, or the more you're going to pass through it. So that's where it's important. And I sold one to a company that was bringing in tube trailers and supplying a building with these tube trailers. So they had them on the outlets of the tube trailers going into the building because they were basically whatever they were doing in the building, everything went through that flash
That
register.
one.
Right. And it was
That seems like kind of sketchy a little bit.
well, I mean, but it was there to protect that trailer,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
that it was hooked to, and there was more safety involved inside the building.
Yeah.
But it
It wasn't just one big lever. Open her up, Bill.
no. It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah. All right. Last question. End up the interview, and I'd love to hear what you say. Is, you know, looking back.
Mhm.
You know, we talked about '95. You started getting into this. Knowing what you know now, where the industry has gone, the things that have done, even the Fabtechs and the social media and all these fantastic things. We didn't even get into the art that you do.
Oh,
and
God.
for the people, that's a whole nother story. It's amazing stuff. But that's a whole nother show almost.
Mhm.
But, you know, all the things that you do and have learned and acquired, if you could go back to 19-year-old Chuck, right before he got this first gig from his buddy being like, come work with us, what piece of advice do you think you would tell yourself if you could time travel then?
Wow.
You're sitting in your Camaro, all of a sudden you walk up to yourself and look, hey man, you're about to get a job offer.
No, I would have said, hey man, get a haircut. No, just
No, I think maybe you should have just kept.
yeah. I should have held on to it for as long as I possibly could, right? No, looking back, we all see different aspects. As a whole, one big earth-shattering thing, no. The only thing that I would think of I wish it would have started earlier building my toolbox.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
and it doesn't matter if you're in the trades or if you're in sales.
Yeah.
There's skills that are acquired to put it in your toolbox either way. And I think I was a little bit too young to realize what I needed. I thought I was just selling stuff. I didn't realize that you had developed skills, not just to sell. You had to have networking skills, communication skills, so many things that even though you're not physically doing work with your hands, you still have that toolbox that you
That's right.
that you take these things that you learn and stick them in there and use them later.
Having the right tool for the right job.
Right,
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I want a 1/2-inch wrench and a 9/16 wrench.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have to use my crescent wrench on everything. You know,
Yeah.
I want those individual tools. And I think that's one thing where, although the company put me through the training for the product, I did not, in the beginning, didn't invest in myself as far as my personal skills. Because, hey, I'm going to make this a career, but I didn't realize that if I'm going to make this my career, there's people out there that have done it already.
Yeah.
You
They
know?
got all this other information.
They figured it out. Why should? And that's what I did. I went and figured it out for myself. And it was like, now that I'm older, that's one thing that the advice I would do is like, there's people that have already done it,
Yeah.
that love talking about it. You know, it's like
Literally what I just presented on an hour ago.
Really?
Yeah, about mentorship and how you need to lean on others.
That's
Like,
amazing.
you need to do that. It's just like we stopped at some point. Humanity, we stopped doing
No,
that.
it's amazing because it's so true. It's like, why figure it out on your own if you can say, hey, I admire you. And that's how you approach it. You don't say, hey, you know,
Tell me your
yeah,
thing.
tell me your secrets.
Yeah.
You know, and no, it's like, lead into it. It's like, I admire you for what you've accomplished or what you create or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Start in that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, compliment the guy first. Don't steal from him. You know, don't steal right off the rip.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm taking this because I like it.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
figured it out and I want it.
Yeah.
They're willing to share, you know,
Right.
and if they're not, someone else is.
Yeah, for sure, man. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
What I tell my staff all the
Yeah.
time. If you don't ask, you don't get. So,
Exactly.
all right. Well, Chuck, it's been fantastic. And you have it on
Absolutely.
here. It's been a great episode. And for all the people, we're here at Fabtech. We're ripping off show after show after show. I think we're doing 6 shows and a floor walk. It's going to be all over the place. So stay tuned. And thanks for following us. We're almost at 100 episodes. So thank you
Excellent.
very much. Stay tuned. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed the show.